Right now, somewhere on Earth, a grown adult is spending more money on their dog's birthday cake than on their own lunch. Someone is holding a birthday party for a goldfish. Someone else is crying in a veterinarian's waiting room over a hamster they've had for 11 months. And somewhere, a person is calling in sick to work because their cat is having a bad day and needs company. This is not unusual behavior. This is Tuesday. Humans have kept animals as companions for thousands of years. We have built special beds for them. We have written songs about them. We have carved their faces into ancient tombs and buried them with full funeral rites. In the modern world, we spend over $150 billion a year on pet food, veterinary care, toys, clothes, and accessories for creatures that cannot say thank you, and occasionally repay our affection by knocking things off shelves while making eye contact. Why? Why do humans do this? Why do we bring animals into our homes, give them human names, and then spend the rest of our lives completely reorganizing our existence around their comfort? The answer is stranger, deeper, and far more interesting than you might expect. Let's start at the beginning. Not the beginning of pet ownership, the beginning of us. For most of human history, our ancestors lived surrounded by animals. Not in the way we mean today, where your neighbor has a Labrador and the park has some pigeons. Surrounded, completely, unavoidably, necessarily surrounded. Predators that could kill you, prey that could feed you, birds whose behavior could predict the weather, insects that signaled the season. Every sound in the undergrowth was something alive, and knowing what that something was could be the difference between a good day and your last one. Survival meant reading animals constantly, the way a deer's ears turned, the direction a flock of birds suddenly flew. Whether that rustle in the tall grass was the wind or something with teeth. People who were good at this tended to live longer. People who were bad at it tended to become a cautionary example for everyone else. Over thousands of generations, that constant attention shaped our brains. We became extraordinarily sensitive to living things, not just good at noticing them, genuinely drawn to them, attuned to their movements, their expressions, their behavior. The brain that evolved on the African savanna wasn't built for spreadsheets and traffic jams. It was built for a world that was alive in every direction. Which means that when we look at a dog and feel something warm and complicated happen in our chest, that's not sentimentality. That's ancient machinery doing exactly what it was designed to do. Now here's where it gets interesting. Biologist E.O. Wilson proposed something called the biophilia hypothesis. The idea, put simply, is that humans have an innate need to connect with other living things. Not a cultural preference, not a habit we picked up somewhere. A deep, wired-in pull toward life itself. Wilson argued that because our minds evolved inside natural environments surrounded by other species, living things are what our brains fundamentally understand. They are our native language. A world without them doesn't just feel empty. On some level, it feels wrong. If that's true, it explains a lot. It explains why people keep houseplants even when they're terrible at keeping houseplants alive. Why office workers with a view of trees report less stress than those staring at walls. Why hospitals with nature murals have patients who recover faster. Why children who grow up around animals consistently score higher on empathy tests. Why you can feel a genuine mood shift just from watching a video of a cat doing something absurd on a Tuesday afternoon. We don't connect with animals because we have extra time and nowhere better to put our affection. We connect with them because some part of us is always reaching toward the living world, looking for something to latch onto. A pet is one of the most direct ways to answer that need, but that still doesn't explain why we love them the way we do. Why we don't just observe animals, why we bring them inside, name them, and then apparently fall apart when they're gone. For that, we need to talk about something called the baby schema. Humans take an absurdly long time to grow up. A foal can stand within hours of birth. A wildebeest calf can run from predators almost immediately. A human infant cannot do anything for years. They are entirely helpless, entirely dependent, and entirely our problem. That dependency created enormous evolutionary pressure on adults to actually care about these helpless creatures. And so, over time, babies evolved features that trigger caregiving almost automatically. Big eyes, round faces, soft features, small noses, chubby cheeks. These aren't random. They are a biological signal that says, pay attention to me, take care of me, don't let me die. And here's the thing. Animals have figured this out too. Not intentionally, not through scheming, but through the same evolutionary pressure. Puppies have it, kittens have it, baby rabbits, seal pups, pandas, hamsters, chicks fresh from the egg. Countless animals share the exact features that activate the human nurturing response. And some of them have been doing it for so long alongside us that they may have been shaped in part by our preferences. Which means that when you look at a puppy and feel something activate in your brain before you've even consciously decided how you feel about it, that's not weakness. That's a deeply ancient system doing its job. The puppy didn't ask for your heart. Your brain handed it over before you had a say. Now here's a strange detour. Let's talk about cute aggression. You've experienced this. You've looked at something overwhelmingly adorable and thought, I want to squeeze it. I could just eat him. He's so cute, I want to cry. And then you felt slightly confused about what just happened in your head. Scientists have a name for this: cute aggression. And it's real, measurable, and genuinely bizarre when you think about it. Researchers believe that when something is intensely cute, it floods your emotional systems with more activation than they can comfortably process. The brain, in its infinite wisdom, generates an aggressive urge as a kind of release valve, a counterweight to the overwhelming positive feeling. The result is that surge of wanting to squish something you actually adore. It doesn't mean you want to hurt anything. It means your brain hit an emotional limit and needed to let off some pressure. People throughout history have always said things like this to babies. You're so cute, I could eat you up. They didn't mean it. The brain just needed somewhere for the feeling to go. The fact that animals can trigger this same response tells you everything about how deeply embedded our connection to them actually is. But let's be honest, cuteness is not the whole story, because plenty of the animals we love most are not particularly cute. Snakes are not cute. Spiders are not cute. Large, ancient tortoises look like they have contempt for everyone in the room, and yet people form ferociously devoted attachments to all of them. This is where touch comes in. Humans are one of the most social species on the planet. Physical contact is not just pleasant for us, it's physiologically important. Touch releases oxytocin, it lowers cortisol, it reduces blood pressure. Holding another creature, being near warmth and breathing, can calm the human nervous system in ways that words and screens simply cannot. Here's what decades of research have confirmed. Petting a dog for just 10 minutes measurably reduces stress hormones. Owning a cat is associated with lower risk of heart attack. People who interact regularly with animals in care facilities show improvements in mood, anxiety, and even cognitive function. Animals are not just emotionally comforting, they are physiologically regulating us. And this doesn't require the animal to be fluffy or soft-eyed. The tortoise owner knows something the rest of us are still figuring out. The creature doesn't need to be conventionally appealing. It just needs to be alive, present, and real. There's something else going on too, something that requires us to ask a slightly uncomfortable question. Modern life is lonely. Not always, not for everyone. But structurally, the world many of us live in today is less connected than anything our ancestors would recognize. We live in apartments, not villages. We work in offices or from home, not in communities. We have hundreds of digital connections and sometimes very few people we'd call at 2 in the morning. Pets don't care about any of that. A dog does not evaluate your social status. A cat doesn't know what you do for work. A rabbit has no idea whether you've been successful or not, and if it did know, it would not care. Animals offer something remarkably rare: presence without judgment, attention without agenda, affection that doesn't depend on performance. And they are consistent. The dog is always happy to see you, not because you've earned it, but because you came home. In a world where human relationships are complicated and conditional and exhausting in their own wonderful ways, that simple, uncomplicated greeting can feel like medicine. Researchers have found that people who talk about loneliness, who describe feeling misunderstood or invisible, often report that their relationship with a pet is one of the most meaningful in their life, not as a substitute for human connection, as a genuine relationship in its own right, different in kind, not in depth. Which brings us to the strangest part: grieving. Anyone who has lost a pet knows what happens. The silence where there used to be sound, the reflex to fill the bowl, the way you keep looking toward the corner of the room where they used to sleep. The grief that arrives fast and stays long and sometimes surprises even the person experiencing it. And then comes the part that makes it worse. Other people who don't understand. It was just a dog. You can get another cat. At least it was only a fish. People who have never lost a pet sometimes struggle to understand why the loss of an animal can feel comparable to losing a person. But here's what the science says. The grief is real. Neurologically, emotionally, physiologically real. The bond humans form with animals activates the same attachment systems as human relationships. The loss registers in the same parts of the brain. The mourning follows similar patterns. The fact that one side of the relationship was a different species does not appear to matter to the part of your brain processing the absence, because to that part of your brain, a relationship was real, a living thing was present, and now it isn't. That's a loss. The species label doesn't change the math. Here's the part that still gets me. Most animals spend their lives focused on their own kind. They interact with members of other species when they need to, out of fear, necessity, hunger. Dogs interact with cats because they live in the same house. Horses tolerate humans because we feed them. Most interspecies relationships in nature are transactional. Humans are the exception. We don't just tolerate other species. We actively seek them. We mourn them. We build lives around them. We domesticated wolves 10,000 years ago and never stopped. We kept cats because they caught mice, and then, somewhere along the way, kept them long after we needed the mice caught. We brought parrots across oceans and taught them words. We rode horses into battle and then, when the battle was over, gave the horses names. This is not a behavior that evolution strictly required. It goes beyond what survival demanded. At some point, humans started choosing animals as companions simply because the relationship was worth having. That choice has shaped both sides. Dogs have become so attuned to human emotion that they can read our faces better than chimpanzees can. Cats, often thought to be purely independent, have been shown to form genuine attachment bonds with their owners. The animals we've lived alongside have changed, and so have we. A brain designed to notice life, a nervous system calmed by touch, a caregiving instinct activated by round faces and soft eyes, a hunger for connection that doesn't always wait for another human to show up, a loneliness that animals can reach in ways that words sometimes can't. All of it points in the same direction. Right now, somewhere on Earth, someone is lying on a couch with a dog on their feet and a cat on their chest, and they have not moved in 40 minutes because they don't want to disturb anyone. Someone is telling their parrot about their day. Someone is apologizing to a fish for not cleaning the tank sooner. Someone is at a shelter looking at an animal through a glass panel, and their heart is doing something involuntary, something they didn't plan. They're not being irrational. They're not being sentimental. They're being human in one of the most deeply human ways possible. The obsession with pets isn't really an obsession at all. It's a relationship. Ongoing, ancient, strange, wonderful, and apparently non-negotiable for most of us. And somewhere in an apartment, right now, a dog is waiting by the door. Not because it was trained to, not because it needs something, because someone it loves is about to come home, and it has absolutely no intention of pretending otherwise. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.